Future David, friends, uh, people who love me, people who hate me, whoever. Decided to turn on the camera this morning. It's Tuesday morning, I believe it's 23rd February, and it's the day after my dad took his last breath on earth. And my family and I, we made a little announcement, I guess you'd say, on Facebook yesterday. And I just want everyone to know that my mother and family were so touched by your kind comments and texts and phone calls and everything else, that just your kind words and your kind presence. But my intention of turning the camera on is not specifically to that. I feel like I'd be remiss to let anyone who has expressed their love toward us in your unique ways. I feel like I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge that. So many of you and around the world have gone through such tragedy this past year, with the loss of your loved ones and the loss of your friends' loved ones, and you've been there for them, and you've been a part of great loss. But specific to this past year or so, with the COVID situation around the world, God, there's been isolation, and I cannot imagine. Even when there wasn't a loss of life, if you had to go into the hospital or something like that, you may not have been able to go in and see your loved one, and maybe they lived, but you were hands off. You weren't able to be there. Possibly your friends weren't able to be there for their family, and it affected you. And I want you to know that affects me, because I have friends, and I've buried friends this year who have been lost in this tragedy. And we went out with masks and to bury them and take care of their last formal arrangements. But the process going into that, through that, of not being able to be with your loved one is just horrible. I can't imagine how difficult that has been on any of you or any of your friends or families who have been through that. I'm so very sorry about that. We had I can't change what happened. It's just what happened, and for whatever reason, maybe we're weak, and God needed to allow us to be with my dad for so many of these years, understanding that he has Parkinson's, and giving us insight or revelation to whatever degree on what that meant. And of course, it didn't take a rocket scientist to see that he wasn't able to walk. His gait was affected. His inner core, it threw off his balance. But my dad was very athletic, and he meant something unique to each of us. To me, I'll talk another time about specifically what he means to me, and I've talked about it in the past. I've written about it, and if you care to, this is part of my life lessons, and I'm turning the camera on so that I can just sort of say, this is I'm praying in a way, and I want you to know what it's like to. Many of you don't know what it's like to just be open before God and one another. And maybe I'm stupid, or maybe I'm crazy for turning this camera on, for being this way. That's very, very possible. But this is the kind of discussion that I was having with my wife this morning as I got up really early, and then she was so tired and over the past several days, you might imagine, just waiting and holding his hand, and we're all our family's just so tired, But I can't help but remember or think. So many of you didn't get that opportunity, and for that, I am so very sorry. And on the other side of that, I don't feel guilty. I guess I'm saying all that to let you know. I mean, I don't feel guilty because we had that opportunity to do that. Well, God allows us each to go through whatever it is we go through. And one of the things that I was sitting on the couch this morning meditating is that each of us, no matter who your loved one is, and no matter how you lost them, whether you lost them and you were able to be there with them like we were, or you lost them in a tragic car accident, or they were in the hospital and you couldn't be with them, or you were scared and your loved one had to go in the hospital and they turned out okay, but you still went through many of these emotions and many of the I say fear right now, not in a bad way, but many confronting the harsh reality that we're going in every day is an unknown. If we're able to talk about this is the day the Lord has made, I will rejoice and be glad in this day, in Him. What is it exactly that is this in this day? I'll tell you what was in yesterday. My dad took his last breath. Initially, if it would have happened suddenly, it would have taken me quite a minute to get to the point that I'd be envious of his transition. It would take me quite a while to come to the realization that I need to let him go. I'm still going to be doing that for a very long time, I'm sure. Part of my own self-therapy is to just kind of be vocal and out loud about what I'm feeling and sharing what I think about things. And I do that because, I don't have a ton of friends that, want to even hear some of these things, or, it's not about these things. It's just that whenever we appear different, just like Jesus did at some point, folks are going to stop coming around. He's going to, just like Jesus did, you're going to get down to just a few, maybe 12. For him, it was masses, 5,000, 500, and then, 72, 12, and inside of that he had 3, and not one of them 12, or the 3, even the beloved, John, even the beloved couldn't stay awake and pray with him to go through what he went through in the Garden of Gethsemane. See, he was going through what he was about to go through even before he went through it. A lot of what I've been meditating on the last several years is found in Elisha principle, and Father's Heart family, and my spiritual family, if you want to put a term on it, pastoral or something like that. That's not actually correct, but a lot of people, that would be a term. Spiritually connected, a network of sons of God, children of God, who are knitted together in a similar purpose in the earth, and that we have in common, and we all have in common as ambassadors and reconcilers, as He is. That's who He is. That's who Christ is. So why am I saying all this? Is I've got to appropriate what's going on. I've got to allow that to be in me. So when faced with my dad's imminent departure, he is something to me. And, I know each of our family members, he's something to them. For one, he's a grandfather to some of our family, and to two of my two siblings and myself, he's our father. To my mother, he was her husband. And to each of us, no matter who they were. And some were friends, and some were acquaintances, and some were friends of me, and some were friends of my sister and other sister and my mother, it goes on and on and on to our siblings, and to their generations. And ever how you saw my dad, there was an identifying mark in your heart. This is what he means to me. He's strong. He's a provider. I know that I could, these are different things. They're not necessarily mine. It may be that I know that if all else fails, that I know I can go to him. I know that I can. Someone else might say that, oh, he was a great man. He had a great way to just live a simple and peaceful life, and by that we can look to him and have a demonstration. And, all those things are true, and they're all true to each of us individually and uniquely. Every single one of us have something different about these realities of what someone means to us. And I was sitting there meditating this morning about my dad passing and what I was feeling. I was thinking about how, I've thought about some of these things for so long, and the transition in my process is going to continue on, and so I'm going to continue on learning. I hope that's God's intention, I'm sure. But I don't want to be ever learning and never coming into the knowledge of the truth of God. And, if I'm going to just learn, I don't want to just keep learning and not come into a greater knowledge. So what would a greater knowledge be? Out of everything I just described there, how beautiful my dad was as this to some of our people, and husband, and a provider in one way, but not in another. Like he wasn't like a financial guru, so he was not the type of man. Now, he provided by building a nice home, and having that paid for with hard work. You could know when he would be home from work by the time, because you'd know when his shift ended, and if something changed, that would be communicated, and there would be no surprises. If he was supposed to be home at 2:30, he was home at 2:30. That he just didn't run around and do other things. He was faithful. So that means that the mark that now someone who's unfaithful has a mark in you or someone too. No matter who they are, they have a mark in us. So, as I'm thinking about these thoughts, not just how I feel about it, but acknowledging that, everybody in my family has a unique feeling and an idea of what he means, and what the world, your loved one, or your spouse that's still with you now, your siblings, or your sons and daughters, or your neighbor across the street, or the one that you had a car crash with, somebody that you didn't or the political party across the aisle, or you could go on and on and on. They each have a perspective on you, and you have a perspective on them. And I'm forced to acknowledge, and I'm forced to learn by, that is not who my dad was. How I saw my dad is how I saw my dad. And God allowed our two paths. I came through my parents, not from them. And you did too. We came through our parents with purpose from God to take us from generation to generation. And for what I'm wanting to tell you right now is, we have often known each other after the flesh. We've often known, and that's why we want to celebrate people. That's how we want to celebrate our fathers and our mothers, and that's how we remember them. And those are beautiful memories. Those are, I don't want to lose any of those memories, but I don't want to worship them, God. I know that it was more expedient. Listen to me. This was so hard to hear as I was hearing it, but I've heard this so many years. But the application, it comes. I'm telling you, whatever God needs to, whatever will happen, there will be great shaking, and embrace it. If you can either embrace it or not, it's up to you. But it's more expedient for him to go. It was more expedient for my dad to go. We can be envious of where my dad's going, depending on how you perceive that to be. But it's more expedient for the purpose of what you were born for you to stay and carry out. You know, I'm envious of my dad. I wanted to go, not to be disconnected from this world and my purpose, but I am persuaded that although I'm not probably polished or good at carrying out my purpose, and I don't know what I can do about that. I'm certain I've went to different classes, and God said, David, what are you doing? Are you trying to present yourself in the way that others? That this was many years ago. Now it's, you know, but I still, that's there. I'm willing to learn, and if that means a different presentation, I can't change who I am. You know, I don't want plastic surgery. I don't want to move my nose over here on where my ears go. That's abnormal. And, you know, we are who we are, but it's more expedient. How is it more expedient for when Jesus said that to the disciples? It's more expedient that he goes. We had no longer, now I'm quoting a lot of scriptures here, and I want you to, if you need help in this, I want you to private message me, because I'm putting myself out here and telling you these things, not to tell you I want to tell about what I'm going through, so maybe you can connect in some of this. But Paul writes that we used to know him after the flesh. We used to know Jesus after the flesh, but no longer we know him that way anymore. We don't know Jesus anymore that way. We don't know, and no longer do we know one another. So when we come into this, we no longer know each other just like, okay, I know my daddy this way, and you know your daddy that way, and it's the same man. There's no tug of war. We just acknowledge that he is his own person, and he knew us the way he knew us. And I'm telling you, my relationship with my dad through the years, I saw eye to eye with him. I came to a place that I saw him when he went. Of course, he went a long time ago, and there was a transition that took place. And the actual transition in his last breath happened yesterday at 2:19. And John 21:18. You remember Jesus is talking to Peter, and he says, who do men say I am? And he goes on and he says, feed my sheep. And he says that 3 different times. And in a way that you can scoot on down to 21:18, John 21:18. And to demonstrate the type of death that would bring glory to God, Jesus is telling all this to Peter. And this is what he tells Peter, and this is what God's been telling me. This is my ministry. This is my message to the world. This is my purpose. And this is the demonstration of what Peter's death would look like to reveal Jesus Christ, the Christ coming in you, to be tabernacled in you. And this is what I want to tell you. This is what I want you to know. This is what Jesus wants you to know, that it's more expedient for him to go away, so that you can confront these carnal or soulish, not in a bad way. These are beautiful. You are who you are, and God celebrates that. God celebrates who you are. God celebrates who I am. God celebrates who my dad is and was in the natural. But he says in 21:18, he says, Jesus says to Peter, he says something to the effect of, and I'm paraphrasing all these things because I don't speak in linear language. All my memories and all my thoughts are in a bucket, if I could describe it that way. They're in a bowl, and they're not connected necessarily. Some are linear, but very few. They're all connected by purpose and by what I gain understanding in that moment, what I get out of it, what I've learned, what I'm learning out of it. So sometimes the pieces they move around, so that I can learn, and not only what's being taught by what's happening, and I'm learning through that, and not just looking at my memories and how my relationship possibly with you, but. So they're in a bowl, and one of those things is this right here. I really need to say it so I can turn this camera off. I'm at 20 minutes, and I apologize. I bet you 3 people will probably watch this, but Jesus tells Peter that when you were young, David, when you were young, you were raised by your parents in the world to be strong and put your own pants on, pull yourself up by the bootstraps, and make something out of yourself, David. And get up early and be something, and get a job, and have a lot of money in the bank, and take care of your family. Those were not bad things to learn or hear. Those were very truthful and honest sentiments from a unique individual. But what does God say through the manifested Word of God? Jesus, who is God in flesh, he flips what looks right in the natural. He flips it inside out. He flips it over to the other side, 180 degrees over, and he looks at it, instead of looking at the types and shadows of the provision of how you look at stewardship and how I look at stewardship, and we can look at stewardship differently, but as long as it's what's true in our hearts, it's beautiful. There's nothing wrong with it. And even if it's not true, I would just encourage you not to be plastic or fake or pretense, and just be who you are. But he says, Jesus flips it around. He goes, now, but when you are older, you were independent, you were raised to be independent, pull yourself up by the bootstraps and put your own clothes on and stuff like that. But when you're older, it's going to be like you're walking around blindfolded, and you're going to take someone by the hand, and they're going to lead you in places you don't want to go. My dad did not want to leave this earth. He did not want to be stricken with a condition, Parkinson's disease in his natural body. He did not. He was very athletic, and even through the course of these many years that he had that disease, he did not have in him the desire to have all that creativity and desire to be trapped in a vessel or in a body that was disconnecting from him, where his feet would not move. He described them as Velcro or stuck. He couldn't move his feet. He would fall forwards and backwards. And many of you with Parkinson's loved ones, or may even have that. I'm not trying to scare you. I'm trying to describe to you what my personal account and my dad's personal account is, as I'm living my life with him and he's lived his life. I'm trying to explain to you that he got frustrated. He did not want to go into this place, that when you're old, someone else will lead you, the Spirit of God. David, I do not want to go through this. God, I do not want to go through. I did not want to see him go. I did not want to see my dad go. I did not want to see him take his last breath, because he meant something specific to me. He meant something to me, something to those around me. We don't want to see him go, but when we are old, we take God, our spirits, God, the one who reigns in our tabernacle, by our hands, and he leads us in places we do not want to go, and someone else pulls our britches up on us, and we just go into the world with purpose. And we surrender. We lower ourselves and make ourselves of no reputation. We humble ourselves. We no longer esteem our neighbors and our friends and the people around the world of different color and all these different things. We esteem them no longer as lower or higher. We don't want to go there because we like this little hierarchy game we've been playing. We like to be in control of they mean this to us. But you can have, in this right here I'm talking about, you can have your cake, I can have my cake and eat it too. I am my unique man, and God reveals all these things through. Look at this beautiful property that I'm standing on that God gave us, or as stewards of. Everything around us, your relationships, your parents, and God preordained from the foundations of the world to reveal something great. And I'm trying to, as best I can in this moment, describe what I'm sensing, what I'm feeling. And I want this to mean something to you, that you have purpose, that you mean something to God, that we celebrate you. God celebrates you. You were wonderfully created. You were known before you were born, and whatever you've been through, it could be, it probably is so much more pain than I can imagine. God has a design plan. I don't care if you got 5 days left on this earth. You have purpose. I got to turn this camera off, and I got a little preachy, and I just had to turn the camera on and express some words. As I look around on my property here, I might sound crazy to you. I don't know, but I got to be me, and you got to be you, and we got to acknowledge that we are something to one another. But that's not who I am. That's not who you are. The way I see you is just the way I see you, and the way you see me is the way you see me, and the way you understand me is quite possibly misunderstood, and the way I understand you is most likely misunderstood. And I've got a friend who, through our spiritual family that I was describing earlier, who used to say, and it's just stuck with me, and I believe it's stuck with anybody who's ever heard it, is you'll most likely never get into, he said, you'll never get into trouble. You won't get into trouble by what you said. It's by what they think you said. Just think about that. It's what you perceive them to say. Chances are they're not saying at all what you think, because we're glued into these, this is what he means to me, and there's some kind of great tug-of-war match going on, and we're willing participants, even though we don't know we're playing tug-of-war. And I want to tell you, as I turn this off, and I'm praying for you, I am praying for you. I don't want to go through this and not pray for you, because there's power in what I'm going through right now. As I'm weak, there's power. I feel it. And I want you to know him. I want you to know him. I want you to trust him. That's all I got for you. I'm sorry for being a little emotional and long-winded, but this is my story, and this is my song, and I'm just going to move right along. I'm going to praise my Jesus, praise my Lord, and I'm going to love you. I'm going to be who I am. But I'm going to also try as best I can, because God's in control. Actually, it's just going to be that way. The purpose is the purpose, and I'm going to just let the purpose be the purpose. And I want you to do that with me. I want you to just not focus on the what we know of someone after the flesh, but we move on to more expedient that I acknowledge these flesh, carnal, soulish ties, and I can be that, but that I can acknowledge that God wants me to be my own unique person and grow through these things as they depart and they're no longer with us. God is evolving us. He's transforming us by the renewal of our minds. I love you, all of you. God bless you.